Anyways, how's your sex life?
I'm so wasted.
I'm sponsored by God.
The Disaster Artist is directed by James Franco and stars James Franco, Dave Franco, Seth Rogen, and Ari Graynor, as well as some other very funny people. Now, if you don't know what The Disaster Artist is about, it's about Tommy Wiseau, Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero, okay? They made a movie way back in 2003 called The Room, which became notoriously bad. It became known as the worst but best bad movie ever made. In other words, it was so bad that it was funny. And then Greg Sestero, who co-starred in The Room and, you know, helped create it and whatnot, he, who was Tommy Wiseau's friend, he decided to write a book called The Disaster Artist, and this movie is based off of that book. And this, basically this movie is about the making of The Room, and just the story behind the friendship between Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero. Now, I watched The Room on this last Thanksgiving break specifically because I wanted to watch The Room before I saw The Disaster Artist, because I'd heard so much about The Room, and I was like, well, I can't in good conscience see The Disaster Artist without watching The Room. And so I did watch The Room. I watched The Room with one of my good friends, Kyle McEwen, who's helped me out with a lot of my projects. And we just sat in my room, and it was free on YouTube. There were like Spanish subtitles, but it was in English audio anyways. And we watched The Room, and it was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had watching a movie, because it really was so horrendously bad that it was funny. It was so funny. It was so much fun, and I highly recommend that you watch The Room. Not for the filmmaking or acting or writing or anything like that, but for the fun you can have with friends. And make sure that you have friends there, because if you watch the thing by yourself, you may not make it out alive. So suffice to say, I was really excited to see The Disaster Artist, and well, did it live up to the expectations I had for it? Yeah. Things I liked about The Disaster Artist. James Franco, he is terrific in this movie. He does Tommy Wiseau so perfectly. He looks like Tommy Wiseau in this movie. His accent is spot on. His acting is just, it's off the charts. It's great. And also his directing. I've seen some of James Franco's other directed movies. They, in all honesty, have not been very good, but this one, The Disaster Artist, great job. He did a terrific job with this movie, both performing it and directing it. I mean, it's great. And I mean, just, he became Tommy Wiseau, which is a very scary thing, but he did it and he pulled it off great. Also, Dave Franco, James Franco's brother, who played Greg Sestero in this movie, really, really good. I totally bought James Franco and Dave Franco's relationship as friends and not as brothers. I was kind of worried that I would just see them as brothers in this movie, but James Franco looked so different than how James Franco usually looks that I never really saw either of these actors as themselves. I just saw them as the characters they were playing, and it was very impressive. So the Franco brothers did a good job. Also, Seth Rogen was really good, Ari Graynor was really good, and pretty much the entire cast across the board was great, but it was really the Franco brothers that stood out the most. I will say, though, there's some great cameos in this movie. There's two of which I won't mention them because I don't want to spoil them, but there are some great cameos in here that I was not expecting to be in the movie. And I've got to talk about the story for a little bit of this movie. I mean, this movie, honestly, it's somewhat inspiring in some ways, in that you watch it, and Tommy Wiseau, okay, I don't want to sound mean here, but the guy was kind of just talentless. I mean, like, really not good, and they really showed he's just a crazy guy. He honestly, before they actually started getting into the actual making of The Room of this in this movie, he really reminded me of someone you would meet on a Greyhound bus. If you ever go on a Greyhound bus, I guarantee you will have some great conversations with the weirdest people on earth. Some good people, some not so good people, all of them very weird people. What's funny is I kind of felt like I fit in on a Greyhound bus. But yeah, Tommy Wiseau, you could totally see him riding on a Greyhound bus. I could totally picture him sitting next to me on a Greyhound bus. because he was just so bizarre in this movie, like so bizarre. There's a scene with Greg Sestero, or Dave Franco playing Greg Sestero, and he's at his house with his mom, and Tommy shows up, and his mom wants to meet Tommy, and she's kind of freaking out because Tommy, super long hair, driving a really expensive car. He says he's 19, but he's obviously not 19. And Dave Franco gets in the car with Tommy and drives away. I mean, if I were in that situation and my kid got in the car with Tommy Wiseau, this just weird, black-haired, ghoul of a man, I would freak out. Like, I would totally freak out. But what's great about this story is that Tommy was not really a bad guy, even though nobody really knows where he got all of his money. I'm not even sure I want to know where he got his money. But really and truly, the story of this movie is great. I mean, you see how hard it is to get into the acting business in Hollywood, and just how to, it's really hard to make it in that business. And you see, you see why people get into acting. Like, I somewhat related to this movie in that, like, I kind of related to Tommy Wiseau and just how I've done some really, really strange stuff in front of other people, like really weird stuff for fun. Yeah, check out, if you don't know it, this is the first video you've ever watched of me, check out my either my best of playlist or my comedy playlist or my high school fun playlist. Yeah, you'll find me far stranger than you do now, but I think you'll still like me. But I related to Tommy in that, yeah, I've done some really, really just bizarre stuff in front of other people, and it's extremely freeing, and I could see why Tommy wanted to be an actor, because he just wanted to do it, man. He'll do it. Yeah. I mean, from start to finish, I just had a blast with this movie. I mean, the exposition of seeing how Tommy and Greg become friends, and then they're struggling in Hollywood to get jobs and stuff, and then just deciding that they're going to make their own movie, and then the actual making of the movie was insane and crazy and hilarious, and then after the movie, and then like at the premiere, everything in this movie worked. They do some recreations of the scenes from The Room, and they're so spot on, so accurate. I mean, this movie is it's probably the funniest movie I've seen all year. I can't honestly think of many other comedies that I've watched this year, but yeah, this is a great comedy. I highly recommend that you go out and see The Disaster Artist. It is really one for the books. It's goodness gracious. But make sure that you see The Room first, because you need context. I mean, I think you'll still find The Disaster Artist funny without seeing The Room, but you'll find it far funnier if you have seen The Room. And make sure to watch The Room with friends. Otherwise, like I said, I think you might die. Guys, The Disaster Artist is, in my opinion, probably the funniest movie I've seen all year, and it's an A+ comedy, so The Disaster Artist gets an A+. So tell me, what did you think of The Disaster Artist? If you've seen it, of course. Leave your comments in the comment section below and let me know. And as always, if you like this video, please like it and subscribe. Tell your friends about the channel. Wait 1 second. I have to show my ass to sell this video. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. Be prepared for this new outro. I've never really had an outro, so here it is. Never forget to be